Well, our speaker today, the Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbek, is one of Unity's leading authorities on metaphysics. He has played a key role in bringing Unity metaphysics into the 21st century with a genuine passion for clarity, precision, and making Unity teachings understandable and user-friendly. Very important. Reverend Paul guides people to awaken awareness and deepen their understanding of a metaphysical approach to life. He is an author, teacher, speaker, and spiritual guide. What's his secret that enables him to drill down and get to the root of metaphysics? Reverend Paul once had a career as a dentist. And our musician, Lawrence Kirby, not only is an outstanding songwriter and guitarist, but he's also an amazing barbecue chef. And if the barbecue breaks down, he knows how to fix it. So before we hear from Reverend Paul, let's relax and listen to Lawrence sing his own composition, Whose Side You On? Take it away, Lawrence.
Whose side you on when the sun comes over the mountains? And whose side you on when the dew is all dried up and gone? And whose side you on while the afternoon winds are blowing? And whose side you on when the 11 o'clock news is done showing? Children of tomorrow, don't you worry, Earth's time's not in a hurry. And after all's been said and done, we'll all burn as brightly as the sun. Whose side you on now that the fighting has long been over? And whose side you on when there's no one looking over your shoulders? And whose side you on while the moon and the tides are shifting? And whose side you on when you've laid your mind to drifting? Children of tomorrow, don't you worry, Earth's time's not in a hurry. And after all's been said and done, we'll all burn as brightly as the sun. And whose side you on when all you've left is here and now? And whose side you on, waiting for the world to come around. And whose side you on, when joy could be the order of the day? And whose side you on, wishing the fear in the world away? Children of today, there are no problems. God in her wisdom has not solved them. And after all's been said and done, will love burn as brightly as the sun?
Please join me in a time of meditation. And we do that by sitting back, getting relaxed. I like to wiggle around a little bit to get a little settled in my chair. And then I like to do 3 calming breaths as we relax our bodies and we relax our minds by letting go of any of the activity that brought us to this now present moment. So let us breathe together. And now, if it feels right and comfortable, I invite you to join me in closing our eyes. As we let go of the outer realm of our outer seeing nature, and we pivot our awareness to that realm of infinite potential that's within each of us. We open our inner eyes to those infinite possibilities. For each of us is wondrously infinite, showing up in finite ways. Wondrously infinite, showing up in finite ways. In our divinity, we are infinite potential. In our humanity, we are finite beings. In our divinity, we are identical. In our humanity, we are amazingly unique. So as we continue to take these deep breaths, we sit in the wonderment of our existence, fully divine and fully human. And we use our power of will now to make the choice, to focus and peer into, in a way, our innate, inherent divinity. You see, we didn't inherit our divinity. Our divinity wasn't given to us. We are innately divine. Our divinity is inherent right here and now. As we become aware of that infinite presence, feel the power, feel the presence. There is only one power and one presence. And all the power you and I have, and all the presence you and I have, must be the one power and one presence. If it was otherwise, there would be two powers and two presences. And so let's take this affirmation, this knowing, into a time of silence. I am fully divine and fully human. I am fully divine and fully human. And one more time. I am fully divine and fully human. Feel your presence. Feel the power right at the point of view. As you say again, I am fully divine and fully human. And let us choose to direct the divine ideas, the principles of life, health, and wholeness in every part of our body. As we see the innate intelligence of our body directing life, health, and wholeness to establish right now total well-being in body and mind. And let's say once again, I am fully divine and fully human. Fully divine and fully human. And so you are, and so I am, and so it is. Amen. Oh, I trust you're realizing that you are wondrously divine and marvelously human. And in those difficult moments of our humanity, I hope you remember to lean into your divinity. Thank you. Greetings. This is the Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbek, and I am delighted to be with you. And thank you for inviting me. So let's get started. Sit back, take a deep breath and relax. I'm hoping you will come away with some new understandings after you've heard this presentation. On the screen, you can see my email address, alberthasselbeck@gmail.com, my website address, paulhasselbeck.com, and then the address of my podcast, metaphysicalromp2.com. And so let's get on with the presentation. The presentation is about whose will is it anyway? Well, this is fundamentally a 12 powers talk about the power of will. We're going to talk about the basics. We're going to talk about what? What about these? It's a couple scriptures. And then using the power of will the most effectively. So let's get into the basics. You can see on the screen that Myrtle Fillmore defined God as principle. She said, God is it, neither male nor female, but principle. And Charles Fillmore agreed when he defined God in the Revealing Word. God is the universal principle which contains all principles. And so we got to know something about principles, don't we? So what's a principle? Well, principles are divine ideas, and divine ideas are powers. And so principles are powers. And so when we talk about 12 powers, we're talking about a subset of principles that God is. And basically, a principle in this context is a discrete concept, a discrete spiritual fact. Now, I want to share a great quote with you from Eric Butterworth. So he says, now you may say, where does God come in? He says, well, God doesn't come in. God never went out. And then he says this, God is spirit, present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. Present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. So that means at the point of each of you, at multiple points at each of you, that's where God is. And it's the entirety of God, the entirety of principle. And all those principles that God is are right there at your hand for your use. And when we're talking about principles, and particularly the 12 powers, everyone has them, whether conscious of them or not. And in fact, everyone is always using them. And they don't care how they're used. And they can be overdeveloped or underdeveloped, and they can be used at any level of consciousness. Now, you see at the bottom of the screen, I said they are essentially benign. Principles are essentially benign. It's the quality of your consciousness that determines whether we use them for the good, the bad, or the ugly. So what is this power of will? Well, Charles Fillmore said it's our executive power. And so this power of will is our ability to choose, to decide, to command, to direct, and to determine. And the power of will was associated with the Apostle Matthew, the colors silver, and it works really, really well with love, understanding, and wisdom. And I'll be getting into that during that third section of this presentation. Now, the location of the power of will is in the front forebrain. And if you know it, the power of understanding is located there, because the apostles that represent understanding and will were brothers. And so I talked about them being underdeveloped and overdeveloped. Well, when the power of will, when your chooser is underdeveloped, you will have a difficult time making decisions. Should you go left? Should you go right? What should I do? How should I direct somebody? It's just underdeveloped. And so you can't use it effectively. On the other hand, when it's overdeveloped, someone might say we're pig-headed, because when it's overdeveloped, we choose and we stick with it, especially when we're engaging that power of strength, which is our ability to persevere. So they can be underdeveloped, overdeveloped, and actually what we're really trying to find in our use of this power of will is kind of the sweet spot where it's not overdeveloped and it's not overdeveloped. And it's used in balance with the other 11 powers. And so then what about these quotes? Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And that's talking about God's will, isn't it? And so we need to talk about God's will, because there's another scripture. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, this assumes that there is a God that has a will for you. And by the way, this power of will is a principle. It is a divine idea. So what about that? Well, depending on how you believe what God is, if you believe God created principles, then your use of the principles are fully justified. If you believe God is principle, then in a sense, you're using God. And so now let's look at the will of God. And so there's divine will, divine purpose, there's the divine plan, and there's divine guidance. I think you can see how the will of God, or God will, is intertwined with all of these concepts. And so now let's look at divine will and divine purpose. So in my understanding, God is this principle which contains all principles. So God is the principle of will, the ability to choose, but God doesn't have a will, so God is not choosing for us. However, this divine will, we feel it as a generic, amorphous, non-specific purpose for ourselves. And it's the same for everyone else. And our purpose is to express our divine potential. And what's our divine potential? Well, every one of those principles are right there at the point of view in their entirety. So your divine purpose and my divine purpose is to use those principles to the best of our ability, so we're better people and we create better lives. So we raise up our consciousness to a higher level that's based more clearly on our innate divinity. And so what about divine plan? Well, the plan is really how each person decides to bring it forth, to manifest it, to demonstrate their purpose in their unique way. So there is a specific plan for everyone, but God isn't planning it for you or for me or for anyone. We decide what the plan is for our lives. And then there's divine guidance. So it is defined as an urge, an energy, or a knowing by which we can make the best choices in terms of our own consciousness. We use our divinity to make the best choices based on our own level of consciousness. And so then what about using this power of will? Well, you probably noticed from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed, you're making choices. In fact, it's pretty hard to avoid choices unless your choice is to let somebody else make choices for you. And when we're making those choices, we're really moving from desire to desire to desire. When you get up, you desire to use the bathroom. You desire to brush your teeth. You desire to wash up. You go to the kitchen. You desire to have breakfast. You desire to make a choice for breakfast based on all the ingredients that are in your kitchen, right? And then you desire to go to work. And then you desire until the end of the day, you finally desire to go to bed. So we move through a day choosing and desiring. And by the way, that desiring is based on the principle or the divine idea or the power of love. And so will is our chooser. I already shared that with you. We use it to make every choice we make. However, it's driven or impelled or motivated from our desire, using our power of love. And when we're going to make a choice, we have to know certain things, don't we? When you go into your kitchen, you have to know what ingredients you have present in the kitchen at that moment in time for making breakfast. So you could have yogurt, you could have cereal, you could have eggs, you could have bread, you could have bacon. Did someone say bacon? Bacon, yes. So as you're looking and knowing and understanding what you have, you might have a response like that, bacon. And so then your choice moves forward. Now, when you're looking at all those choices, you're comparing and contrasting them. You're evaluating what's in your kitchen. So that means your evaluator is involved, and your evaluator is your power of discernment, which has been known as your power of judgment or your power of wisdom. Now, you might be wondering why I choose discernment. Well, the power of judgment these days has a negative tone to it and usually references a negative evaluation of somebody. Whereas the power of wisdom has a positive tone to it. And it's about an evaluation that is wise. So both the terms judgment and wisdom can talk about a process or a conclusion. And using the word discernment for this power avoids those two things and the confusion of those two things. So discernment is the word I use for the power of judgment. And we use discernment to evaluate, to compare and contrast what we know. So you go in the kitchen, you know what's there, you're comparing and contrasting it, you're desiring to have breakfast, and eventually you make one decision and you decide to have that breakfast. Now, I want to look at this another way, because if you're moving forward in your life and you're making choices like all of us do, I'm sure at one time or another, you made a choice you regretted. At the time, it might have seemed like a good idea, but in retrospect, it was not the optimal choice for you at that time. And so if you only knew you had the power of will to make a choice, that's the only power you could look at and go, I wonder if something was happening in my use of the power of will that I made such a bad choice. However, when you add the power of love, the power of understanding, and the power of discernment as working together, kind of in unison with the power of will, now you have 4 things you can look at. So when I got that bad choice, when I made the wrong choice, was I desiring inappropriately? Was I desiring the wrong thing? Or maybe I wasn't using my understanding optimally. And I wasn't knowing all the things I could possibly know in order to make the best decision, to make the best choice. And then you can look at your evaluator. You can look at your power of discernment. You could be looking to see, well, did I really pause and invest enough time to compare and contrast what I know and then make the best choice driven by this desire? So you see, this can become a diagnostic tool. And diagnostic in the way of, well, I made a wrong choice. So what's weak? It's my power of love weak? Is my power of understanding weak? Is my power of discernment weak? Is my power of will weak? Or maybe one of those four is overdeveloped and overemphasized. So we can use this as a way to learn to make the best choices we can possibly make. And so whose will is it anyway? Well, God is will, and you are fully divine and fully human. And you use God will, you use the power or divine idea of principle of will to make a choice. So the answer is really both. God is the power of will. God doesn't have will. God is will. Just like we don't say God is powerful, we say God is the principle of power, and humankind is powerful. And so you, in your humanity, are using your divinity as will, love, understanding, and evaluation to make the best choices you can make. And so as you go forth today, and as you look at your week, I hope you now take into consideration the power of will and how it works with love, understanding, and discernment for you to make the best choices you can make. And I hope you make the choice to make it another beautiful day in your consciousness. Thank you for listening, and so it is. Amen.
If you would know my love, if you would know my heart, only look inside. Only look deep inside. If you would know your love, if you would know your heart, only go down deep. Only go down deep inside. If you would know you're God, if you would know your love, only look inside. Only look down deep inside. If you would know your heart, if you would know your love, oh, go down deep. Only search down deep inside. If you would know your heart, if you would know your love, if you would know your God.
Thank you, Lawrence, for your delightful, heart-warming songs. Just beautifully sung with deep, deep feeling. Thank you. And Reverend Paul, wow, you've done it again. Hit the ball right out of the park. Thank you so much for your enlightening, clear, and practical message. We all need to hear that now. Often we don't understand how really powerful we are, how divine we are, and you make it so easy to understand.